So before we get started with our presentation today, I'm going to go over the quick agenda. It is in the invitation that you received through your calendar, so you can pull it up personally if you wish. But we are going to do our welcomes, which we are doing now. We're going to have some subcommittee report outs from the 3 subcommittees that we have. And then we'll hear from Valerie, who is with VI Marketing and Branding. She's going to talk about how to use communication skills and communication techniques to get your message out there. And she's got a great presentation ready for us. We're going to do our looking forward to see where we're headed with the work group, as well as the next meetings that you can be expecting with the full work group as well as the subcommittees. All right, we'll do our subcommittee reports really quickly. Amy, if you are ready, if you don't mind giving us a brief speak about what you are doing in the Research and Technology Committee.
Thanks, Claudia. I have to thank the committee members. They've been fantastic stepping up to help with literature reviews about the existing research that's out there and serving as speakers in our committee meetings. We're exploring new countermeasures and looking forward to a meeting that we've got coming up at the end of this month to hear more about the Texas Task Force. And I don't know, we had a great session at Lifesavers that wasn't necessarily tied to our committee, but definitely helped with new potential opportunities for the committee moving forward. And hopefully I'll have more to share about that the next time we meet.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Katie, would you like to speak on the Communications Committee?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Katie Mueller here from National Safety Council. I think we are looking to, just like Amy, looking to the members to help us develop the countermeasures for communications. Some of the things that we've been talking about is being able to share out what each other are doing to observe Heatstroke Awareness Day, which is coming up at the end of the month. So we'll be receiving some communication about that and how to share with others what your organizations are doing. And then really working to develop some key messages that this group and others can kind of agree on and share out through the country to raise awareness for heat stroke. So look forward to more communication with you all on the communications work group and building countermeasures that make an impact. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you, Katie. And subsequently, Katie's group brought Valerie to us today. So thank you for that, Katie. The Legislative and Policy Subcommittee, we're actively working on developing a model document to present to state legislators to help develop state law in relation to pediatric vehicular heat stroke prevention. We've got basically our brainstorming sessions going on currently. Some of that is through outside media, like through Canva, to get those thoughts into the process. And then once we nail down what we really think needs to be in the document, we're going to start looking toward having it professionally or to work together to get it to written out in a way that makes sense for those state legislators. So we're super excited about that. So if any of you that are on the call are not part of a subcommittee, we would really love to have you on a subcommittee. We highly recommend as well to try to find one of the 3 subcommittees that you wouldn't typically connect yourself with. And that is so that we can do more of a complex systems approach to it, a safe systems approach, however you want to put it, in the sense that you may be working in medical field, but yet you have knowledge enough in your field to give us information on legislative policy, things that you see. So if you're willing to, and if you have the bandwidth to do so, please contact me, and I'm happy to help you connect to one of the subcommittees or all of them, however you choose to do. So thank you for that. Right. So today we have Valerie Trammel. She served as a marketing and communications specialist at the University of Oklahoma School of Nursing. Previously, she was a communications professional for the Oklahoma State University Admissions Office and the OSU Library. She has a Master's of Science in Mass Communications, a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism and Broadcasting, and a Bachelor of Arts in History, all from Oklahoma State. In Valerie's current role, she is the Media Strategy Director for VI Marketing and Branding, and we're honored to have her here today to talk to us a little bit about ways to affect behavior change through marketing and outreach. And I'm going to turn it over to her. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you. All right. I feel like most folks have their allegiances to one technology, and we typically are a Zoom folks. So this is the Teams department. So if anything goes wrong, you guys just let me know, okay? I'm so pleased to be here chatting with you guys today about behavior change marketing, because it is one of my absolute favorite topics in the world. So at VI Marketing and Branding, we do a lot of this work, which you may have heard it called social marketing. And just to get us on the same page about what we're kind of talking about. There you go. Social marketing, this is a definition I really love from Kotler, Roberto, and Lee, which is the use of marketing principles and techniques to influence our audience to voluntarily accept, modify, or abandon a behavior for the benefit of themselves, groups, or society as a whole. So everything that we do in traffic safety falls into this idea of social marketing. We like to call it behavior change marketing, because at its core, that's what we're trying to do, is get people to change a behavior, which sounds easy, and I think everyone on this call would agree is not. And so you already heard a little bit about me, but kind of why I'm here talking to you is because I was lucky to come to an agency that focuses on this every single day. So we have been working in behavior change marketing for over 30 years at our agency, and these are just a few of the pieces that we have done and brands that we've worked with. But our work has been in traffic safety, it's been in public health, it's been in energy conservation, recycling initiatives, all different kinds of things. But at its core, what we have is a group of people who believe very much in making the world a better place, a safer place. And that looks, different for every initiative that we do, but there are some core principles at the center of it that I think makes what we do different. And so I'm excited to share that with you guys today, so that maybe you can take it back to your group and see how we can apply this theory and in practicum to make better and more effective communication campaigns. So I am kind of our agency's resident research kind of nerd. I will say that. I feel like I'm in good company maybe here with a lot of folks who do that as well. So I wanted to start with a little bit of theory for you. So marketing itself has a lot of theory, but when you're talking about behavior change theory and marketing, there is a lot to bring in. So one of the first things that we use when we're doing our work is the trans-theoretical model. So this is a model that is for the individual itself. So this is kind of all these stages of change based on your likelihood to change and the time you are from making that change. So you kind of start in this idea of pre-contemplation. It may not be on your radar yet. You're more than 6 months out from the change. Moving into contemplation, which maybe you're about in the next 6 months, you're thinking about making a change. Determination gets you right up to the point where you're like, in the next 30 days, I think I can make this change. And so one of the easiest things maybe to help visualize this and kind of how people move in this process is quitting smoking. And that's one of the things that we work on a lot at our agency, is helping people quit smoking. So for most folks, they know it's an issue. They live in that pre-contemplation, maybe it's, when my kids are older, or, at this point when I retire, I'll have time to tackle it. But they kind of are thinking through this, and we want to capture the folks and have our media messages ready for them right when they're at that moment of determination. That's the low-hanging fruit, when they are aware of a change and they're about 30 days out from thinking I might be able to do this. That's when we want to be there with media messages so that they're ready to change. And then, all of these behavior change, depending on what act we're trying to get them to change, we have to talk to them at various points of this process, whether they're in the midst of making the change, maybe they've backslid and they've had a relapse of some sort, or they're looking to take this behavior change and turn it into a habit, which is that maintenance step. Wherever they are in the cycle, we need to identify what messages need to get to them at that point in the change, and how do we do that effectively. But that's kind of an individual approach, right? So that's what one person might need, and it's important to know what that looks like and what messages they might need. But we also need to be able to look at, what does this look more broadly? What does this look like for groups of people? And that's where the social change, behavior change model kind of comes into action. Again, this is from Kotler and Lee, the folks that definition was in the beginning. And they found that really this boils down at a kind of group level, a society level, into 4 factors. And everyone here may be being like, really, this is it? It all boils down to these 4 steps. It's a lot harder to do than that. But, having a framework is useful. So the first piece is awareness of an issue. And then you have to, once people are aware of the issue, influence their attitudes, get them to take a change. And then the ultimate point of making it stick is changing those social norms. So when does that change move from a person level, we were talking about with the trans theoretical model, into a societal change and a group level change? And to me, especially in the traffic safety area, one of the best examples I think we have of this model in action is the use of seatbelts. So in 1981, only about 1 in 10 people were using seatbelts regularly, despite the fact that it had been a required kind of piece of safety equipment for many years. And so really, we said, how do we change attitudes about this? Like, how do we get people to change their mind about it? And so it was a combination of regulatory work, government legislation, public health campaigns. If anyone remembers Larry and Vince, the crash test dummies, one of the most effective PSA campaigns of all time, really in the span of about 1 to 2 decades, had the ability to really change people's attitude about the issue and drive that change forward. And now I'm happy to say I have an 11-year-old. I've told her about this once. I said, people didn't used to wear their seatbelts. When I was born, people weren't wearing seatbelts. And she looked at me and she was like, that is crazy. Who wouldn't wear a seatbelt? And I said, great, we changed the social norm. Generationally, people are wearing seatbelts and they can't imagine the difference. And it's because we've created enough change that we've moved it into a norm. And so that's the challenge ahead of us for any kind of behavior we want to change, is how do we work through this process? So at VI, knowing that we needed to make this actionable, what we did is developed kind of our own model. And so what this does is takes that behavior change framework and applies traditional marketing funnel, that kind of left side you see there of attract, educate, engage, convert. And we said, how do these 2 things work together? And how can we use public media messages to help move people through this process? Now, this is a long-term, often, decade-long or more process, but we have to continually be reinforcing it, because for every person that is in that trans theoretical model kind of circle, they're making their own behavior change. We're affecting not only those folks, but people as a whole. And we need to continue to reinforce those messages so that we kind of ultimately get down to what I would call the sweet spot of the bottom right, where people are changing behavior, people are helping support the social norm. We've changed legislation to help lock that in. It's not just based on people's preference anymore, it's the law of the land. And how do we change these things to make a lasting impact? So how do you boil down a decade plus long campaign and idea? For us, often it is in one campaign at a time, 1 year at a time. And what that can look like for us is the learning loop. And so this is, again, a proprietary process that we use here at VI, but the idea of a constant work to learn from what we have. And so at any given year, that looks like us deciding what change do we want to get to this year? What can we affect? How can we make an impact in a small way that moves us towards that long-term change that we want to see? And that helps us define our outcomes, map the change that we want to see, and then move forward with finding what media messages will help us connect with our target audience to do that, to make that change happen. How can we create compelling assets and creative deliverables that will, when people see them, they'll react to in the way they need to, so that then they can take the step that we're asking them to. What small step can we ask them to make to move them towards that long-term behavior change? So this is a lot of theory. If you guys have questions as we go, please feel free to drop in the chat, but we'll also have a chance to discuss this at the end of the presentation. But the next step after this is, and this is just a different way to kind of visualize that, is this really does turn into, for us, a full funnel kind of integrated communications approach. So what that means is we are thinking through all the media messages at our disposal. So OTT at the top, you may have heard of. It's called over-the-top television. Think streaming television, things like Hulu, YouTube TV, things like that. We can use emerging media like that. We can use ads that you see on the internet. We can use social media. We can use search options, and we can use, all of these tools at our disposal to layer messages on for folks in a way that they move through this kind of funnel to the ultimate point of conversion. Now, okay, I'm throwing a lot of marketing at you guys, so you may not be as familiar, but when we talk about a conversion in a traditional marketing campaign, that might be something like, I am selling shoes and I'm asking you to go online and buy those shoes. In behavior change, we know that that isn't necessarily what people are doing. And so defining what that is, what is the conversion we're asking people to make when a lot of times we just want them to think about our message, can be a challenge. And there's other challenges in behavior change marketing. So that defining that action we're asking people to take can be one, as well as if you are given dollars to spend on marketing or communications, how do you calculate the return on that investment? Without an action you're asking people to take definitively, and knowing some of these campaigns can last over a decade or two, how do you say that we are moving the needle? Often we face challenges finding the right data. In traffic safety, we're only as good as often the crash reports or incident reports that we get. Sometimes we don't have the information to find the right target audience that we want to see. If we're dealing with public health situations, we often have restrictions based on HIPAA compliance. And then everyone, in this, I would agree, there is no public health or safety department in the world that has the budgets they want to spend on this material. So that's often a challenge. And how do we be effective with the dollars that we're spending on marketing, knowing that we don't ever have as much as we need? And if it isn't something where we can spend dollars, how do we communicate using the channels that we do have to support, using this model and making change happen in a way that doesn't require budgets? Are there partnerships we can leverage? And then always, with any kind of policy-based piece, the shifting policy landscape is always a challenge, not just in how we can communicate with people and what options are available to us, but also changes in regulation, changes in the industry, things that we're seeing. I don't think anyone could have predicted, this is the most cliche thing I'll probably say today, I don't think anyone could have predicted COVID-19, but I would have never guessed that it would have such a massive impact on traffic safety issues that we're seeing kind of on the roads, and crash rates and fatality rates as a result of that. So just, you never know what you can predict, but there's plenty of challenges. So I think maybe I can only see, Claudia, your face since I'm presenting, but your eyes haven't glazed over yet. Other people's may. I'm going to move on from policy. If you have questions, put them in the chat, please. But let's talk about data, because data is a huge piece of what we do at VI Marketing and Branding, and I'm sure for you guys as well. And so one of the ways we use data is audience building. There's lots of ways, but audience building is a big piece of it. It helps us find who is our at-risk audience. It helps us say, how do we find them? So if we found these folks, what data do we have available on what communication channels they're looking for? Where are they spending their time online? What messages are going to resonate with this group? How do we make creative messages? More on this in a minute, but how do we make creative that resonates with this group? And then how, ultimately, back to that ROI piece, how do we say that what we're doing is working, and how do we improve what we're doing as we're going through measurement of these pieces? So one place that you'll often see this is in creative testing. So when we make creative campaigns, one of the things that we do is try to message test our creative elements for groups before we put them out. Because it's very easy for us to say, you know what I think this audience wants? I think they want this idea. But the reality is that the only people qualified to make that decision are the people in that group themselves. And so this is a really key way that we can be efficient with our spends before we roll this out and put a lot of money behind it or put time into developing it. We can use these kind of roughed out animatics is what they're called. They're kind of videos of sketches to show our audience the creative and see what's really resonating with them. Another way that we use data is by asking people, this is an example from, we work with the Oklahoma Highway Safety Office, and this is some research that we did with a partner on, what do people want to see in terms of the messages from traffic safety? We have an idea, I think we've batted around, do they want facts? Do they want personal stories? Should it be super dramatic? Should it be more of a social norming message? And, I could speculate all day, but getting some data on that has helped drive us forward in our creative development to make sure that we are producing what people want to see, so that they can take those messages in and change their attitudes. And I think one of the pieces that is sometimes lost in this, and where I think this kind of idea of behavior change marketing can pull pieces together, is I think there is a tendency for data to feel very impersonal. But for us, in the industry that we're in, for us, data is a really important tool to build empathy. So tying those two pieces together really pulls the human aspect out of the data in a way that makes it actionable. And so, I think there are certain topics that are easier to develop that empathy. But one of the ways that we kind of force ourselves into that mindset is using empathy mapping. And so what that looks like for us, I'll give you an example of one that we did for a flavored tobacco campaign that we were working on recently, is working through this worksheet where, we say, what changes are we trying to get people to make? And then who is our audience? We've pulled data on them. Maybe it's a woman and she's, 36 to 45 and she has this household income, but that's really, really broad strokes. Like, how do we get inside her mind? And so we say, what messages are they hearing? What are they seeing in their environment about this topic? What are they thinking and feeling, their hopes, their anxieties? What does their average day look like in their behaviors? And using that and kind of working through this exercise helps us get into the mindset of our consumer and our target audience in a way that really allows us to think about how can we meet them where they are with empathy, not where we want them to be. And that honestly is often a challenge. We want them to be farther along than they are, but allows us to develop what they need at that moment. And so ultimately, after we've kind of worked through this empathy mapping, where we can get to is something called a persona. And a persona to me is how we bring that target audience to life. And so with that, we can create it, and often we choose a photo so you can visualize the person you're thinking about. And we say, how would they describe themselves? What information do we have about them from a demographic? Where are we seeing their personal goals? What are they motivated by? What are their pain points? What do they value? How can we tackle this audience? How can we bring all of it together into a persona that we can bring to our creative team? We can bring to our media team. We can bring to our clients. And we can say, this is who we're going after and how we're going to tackle it. When we're talking about pediatric vehicular heat stroke, we're not just talking, I think at broad strokes, we're able to say, yes, we're looking at parents, the at-risk audience. We know some of the behaviors that put them at risk, but how do we get into their brains? How do we say what's going through their mind? How did they see themselves in this creative? What psychological barriers are they putting up that helps them separate themselves from people experiencing this issue? And how do we break those down? And so once we bring it to life, it's a lot easier to think through the creative execution and how we're kind of going to move forward. And so that's one of the places that we can help develop some of our messaging strategies. And I won't go through all of these because I don't know that we have time, but there's a lot of different ways that you can position the change you're asking people to take with them in order to build value. So some of that is you can rewarding is an easy way. It's you're rewarding the behavior, and maybe you develop a program where if they take the behavior, they receive a small award. I think that the industry has done a great job of one in particular that I'll call out, which is controlling the environment. Controlling the environment is a strategy where you modify the environment itself to make it easier to achieve the positive behavior you're working towards. So I think you often hear this when people are trying to execute an exercise change. So, I want to work out in the mornings more. And people say, well, lay out your clothes the night before, put your shoes out in your clothes, because you're controlling your environment. But visual cue makes it much more likely for you to take the behavior you're trying to. And so for pediatric vehicular heat stroke, I think this technology that has been implemented in certain vehicles is a great way to control the environment. And what are other things that we can do with that? You know, with marketing, a lot of times we are involved in some of the programs, but for us, a lot of times our best messaging strategies come from raising awareness and arousing emotions. And those are two in particular that I think have a lot of opportunity in this area if they can be done well. And so with that, I'll take a drink. Let's talk a little bit about, oh, maybe my slides won't move. Let's talk a little bit about storytelling. I think that's a really compelling piece. When we talk about communication, it's easy. Again, we've talked a lot about the strategy behind it, the theory behind it, the data behind it. But ultimately, it is our job once we've kind of, you know, built our persona to bring that story to life. And how we do that is through the art of storytelling. And the reason this is so important is because stories engage the whole brain very differently than just data and statistics do. So when people connect with a story or its characters, their brain releases oxytocin. And if you're familiar with that, that's the bonding hormone that you get when you hold a baby. And stories have that power to encourage empathy, build trust with the audience. And that is a really powerful thing. There are a lot of studies that show the more a brand can connect with their audience and build trust, and the trust that the audience has with the brand or with the message, the more likely they are to receive that information. And so it's important that we build that. Stories also have a few more benefits. Stories engage the audience at a much higher level than simple information or statistics. They provide context and meaning to data, so we can bring that data to life through people's stories. And they're memorable. I know I heard somebody say Lifesavers. I attended Lifesavers as well this year, and there were some amazing and powerful sessions. And I bet all of you would say the sessions you might remember the most were the ones that had powerful, compelling personal stories. It's that way for me because it helps bring a story to life. And that is the piece that's going to stick with me more than some of the data. It's all important, but storytelling helps bring it to life for our audience in a really powerful way. And so we want to figure out how we can do that. So we have a couple of different ways that we use stories to bring that to folks. And one of them is through the idea of mirrors. So this is just a storytelling strategy. And it is the idea that you reflect the life of the audience to them. So they see themselves in the ad. And what that does is they feel affirmed and they want to engage more with that content because they see themselves reflected in the ad. It helps, you understand how your experience relates to what the ad is saying. And so we can show them a behavior, we can relate it to them, and we can tell them this is what this is your life and this is the behavior we want, and we can tie the two together. Kind of similarly, we can use windows. So windows are a means to see other people's realities. And so to me, testimonials from people who have been through a child loss, through a heat stroke, incident, no one wants to see themselves in that, but the use of those testimonials kind of really applies this idea of this windows strategy. It helps people see someone else's experience, and it helps them understand that it could be their experience too. So it helps provide a deeper understanding and a deeper context to an issue. And then the third type of storytelling we often use is called sliding door. And so this is more of an immersive storytelling technique where you build a world and invite the person into it. And so you can kind of see from all of these, the common kind of thread on all of these is how people see themselves in the ad. They see themselves reflected. You create empathy with the audience and with the behavior. And so at its core, what we're using storytelling for is human connection. We want this to be something that has that powerful emotional impact. It can create connection, and then it'll generate change and ask the person to take the action we want from them. So with all of this creative development that we do, with the data that we've looked at, all of the pieces, there are a few things that we are facing that we just can't ignore as we're going through this. And a big piece of that, especially with this issue, is the idea of stigma. And so I'm sure you're all familiar with stigma, but stigma is a negative social attitude attached to someone's characteristic that could be regarded as a physical, mental, or social deficiency. And so the challenge with stigma is that it implies a social disapproval, and it can unfairly lead to discrimination against an individual or expulsion from a group. And so psychologically, what we're saying is the otherness of people and the ability for people to view them as other in a way can be very damaging. And so our challenge, especially on this issue, our challenge as behavior change marketers is how we break down that stigma and how we address it in a way that lets people know they're not alone, that lets people know that they aren't other, that what they're experiencing is real and powerful. And by addressing that, we can then have much better outcomes. So this is a perfect example. It's not our own. I didn't do this, but I found it and found it really interesting. So knowing that we can't ignore stigma, we need to adjust. This is an example from the city of Austin. They were sending out information on housing assistance for low-income individuals, and that is something that's kind of shrouded in a lot of stigma. A lot of people felt shame because of it and the reception that they were getting. And so they actually tested various messages. They tested one that was kind of a control, where they just used kind of neutral language. Hey, this is available. This is what it is that you should apply. And then they did one, which is seen here, that really just the language changed. It just said, hey, are you struggling? You aren't alone. It's not your fault. People need help. This is available to you. And what they saw was their messaging that had removed that stigma, that had pulled that out of the language, had 11% higher applications as a result of it than the non-destigma message, the typical message, and 37% more applications than just people who got no message at all. So there's small changes can yield big results when we think about the messages that people need to get. And I think in particular, this topic has a lot of stigma wrapped around it. I shared with the group when we were meeting to kind of plan this presentation, I said, this is a topic near and dear to my heart because I'm actually home. My 8-year-old's in the other room with flu. But he is my reason for being so passionate about this subject, because when he was 22 months old, I had kind of a day that was a little out of the norm. I was getting ready for my daughter's birthday party. I had a house full of family. My son had woken up early, and I said, I'll just take him with me to run my Saturday morning errands for the party. I never would have normally done that. And so I was very much out of routine. But when I went in to grab cupcakes, he had fallen asleep in the back seat, and I left him in the car for about 10 minutes. And when I came out, I was very fortunate that it was 7:30 in the morning. There was no one around. It was very cool. But I cried in a parking lot thinking I would never have thought I was the person who would have done this. And that moment led me to a lot of media. If anyone's read Gene Weingarten's Washington Post story about the issue and that won the Pulitzer Prize, I read it, and those two pieces in my mind really helped me realize that this issue isn't one that is of quality of parenting. It is an awareness issue, and really opened my eyes to it. But despite all of that information, it took me 6 years before I shared that story with a single person besides my husband, not even my immediate family. And the reason for that is the stigma. So stigma is something that we can't ignore. We really have to tackle, and research can help us get there. So that's a lot of information. I kind of wanted to leave you with one more piece, which is a good example of kind of what we can see from stigma for a campaign that our agency did with our state health department, centered around HIV testing, which is another kind of piece that carries a lot of stigma around it.
What if fear really is our greatest enemy and denial our most lethal adversary? In online focus groups with gay and bisexual men, we discovered that worry and anxiety were fueling the spread of HIV in Oklahoma. Working with Evolve Research, the Oklahoma State Department of Health conducted a 1-week online focus group with populations at risk for HIV infection. It uncovered a fascinating insight. the fear of social stigma and positive test results were discouraging men from getting tested for HIV. Based on this observation, VI Marketing and Branding created the Deadlier Than HIV campaign. The message was simple, that fear, worry, and dread are deadlier than HIV. It encouraged the audience to set aside fear and contact an HIV hotline. Why? Because early detection reduces HIV transmission by up to 95%. And with life-saving drugs, people can live long, happy, healthy lives even if they're HIV positive. Video, social, and digital media targeted at-risk populations with multiple messages to increase their awareness and their chances of getting tested. Facebook ads and digital-rich media allowed users to scroll through interactive content, including a map directing users to the nearest rapid testing centers. Custom Snapchat filters allowed men to express their unique personalities and their support for HIV testing. These filters were available at bars, hotels, and restaurants that cater to our target. Out-of-home executions targeted precise zip codes where gay and bisexual men congregate. Bus benches, shelters, gas pumps, and bar messaging got the word out. And a native news article was served to the audience on their favorite websites. All told, the campaign created hundreds of millions of impressions in Oklahoma's HIV strongholds. In our rich media campaign, rapid testing maps were utilized nearly 4,200 times. On Grindr, we delivered 9.5 million impressions to our exact target audience. On Facebook, we reached more than 272,000 unique users, far exceeding our goal of 100,000. Snapchat filters generated over 28,000 impressions at the exact time and place where HIV transmission commonly occurs. Finally, traditional media created an extraordinary 175 million impressions. The Deadlier Than HIV campaign was strategic and highly integrated, but the only thing that matters are results. During the 2 heaviest months of the campaign, HIV hotline calls increased by an amazing 136%. This extraordinary response is making a difference in the lives of gay and bisexual men. And perhaps more importantly, it's changing the culture in Oklahoma. Working shoulder to shoulder with community partners, the Oklahoma State Department of Health remains committed to protecting at-risk populations and halting the spread of HIV in our great state.
So with that, you can really see the impact that tackling stigma first and leading with empathy had on our campaign, our creative, and our results. And I'm hopeful that that type of approach, kind of from start to finish, from, strategy, data execution, the thought of how we're doing and telling our stories, and then how we tackle stigma can bring the same sort of results to this issue with your group. So that is all I have. This is my contact information. If you would like, I am here via email. If you want to take that down, I'm happy to chat with anyone at any point. And if you're interested more in some of the insights from our agency, which VI Marketing and Branding, I have a QR code here that you can scan that'll take you directly to our insights page. And you can see a lot of topics, blog topics we have on various behavior change or marketing pieces, and sign up for our newsletter there too. Questions?
Thank you so much, Valerie. Yes, are there any questions? I do have one. Is there any way that we could get a maybe a copy of your empathy map to use?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great. Something that I think I could use every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything they want to ask as it relates to our work? Jeanette Fennell says phenomenal presentation. So well organized and presented.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
The hardest challenge was scaling it back, honestly. I could talk, if you had given me an hour and a half, I could have done an hour and a half. So
yeah, and it's a very important topic. I know I learned a lot about it in my master's degree, but I think you put it in more of a way that I could understand. And we would, like I told you when we met earlier, we would love to have you on at least one of our committees to help us put things together. It would be great to have that. So, and just put some insight for us.
Happy to.
You're getting a lot of accolades, so that's great.
Oh, thank you. I'm just excited to be here, honestly. And sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Probably moving on. I just wanted to say, this is very seriously a cause near and dear to my heart. And I know there's a lot of people on here who have been working on a lot of things. In my research, I came upon a lot of things from the group I know who is already on this work group that is out there in the world and the work that you guys are doing. So thank you very much for that, because it has been impactful to us in our work with the Oklahoma Highway Safety Office, but then just me personally and all the work you're doing. So I just really appreciate the work that everyone's doing.
Absolutely. One more call if anybody has a comment or a question.
I have a question. This is Uwe Meissner.
Go ahead.
I'm an engineer. I have been working in child safety and traffic and for over 40 years. And my impression is that the experts who talk about the same thing all the day, every week, every month, we understand what's going on. However, if we don't explain it in a, let's say, folksy way, that regular people who are not confronted with the subject every day, every hour, that they ingest it, let's say. If I have, let's say, a description for the problems and to explain why smaller bodies heat up faster than bigger bodies, I can't say that, let's say, the higher surface area to volume ratio is the explanation. Many people don't understand what we are talking about. So I think we have to go in a way to everyday samples, like boiling eggs or cleaning something. A small part heats up much faster than a big part. So the big body is a heat sink. And many people don't understand it. They listen to it and hear, yes, the car can heat up in 20 minutes to a very dangerous situation. Yeah, but us adults, we don't feel it so much. Yeah, we feel a little uncomfortable. It's hot. But we have no imagination that for children, in 20 minutes or even less, this is too dangerous. And that the brain starts coagulating at around 104 degrees. And that is not understood by most people. So they totally forget it. It's not so urgent. Yes, the car can heat up fast, but I don't have any problem with, yeah, I sweat a little more. Yeah, but the adult body is bigger, it can sweat more than the child body. And so I think we need to, in our communication, we need to use simple samples to make it understood.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that.
I'll agree. And I will say that having worked in traffic safety marketing and messaging, I just think it behooves all of us to think about evaluating communication campaigns as something that needs investment, because like this issue and others that really challenge the target audience is a real challenge for us to get to. We need additional resources to evaluate what groups like VI and others who are doing great work are doing. We need those strategies and those countermeasures to be evaluated so that the ones that are working can be replicated. So those of you who have the ability to influence what gets funded, I plead for that, because I think it can go a long way in this issue.
Absolutely, Katie. Because we did learn by the research that Emma Sarton did with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia that most of the caregivers out there think it's somebody else, and Valerie even touched on that. And it's us, it's me, it's you, and so we really have to think about the things that Valerie mentioned and try to reach our target audience in that way. So absolutely. Anyone
and all that
else?
message testing and things that, we see it in working in impaired driving as well. Cannabis is an issue that I know that we're working on trying to reach those who are at risk of cannabis impaired driving. But how do we get them to overcome the social acceptance of the issue? And I know those of us who've been around for millions of years understand this, but we also have to be innovative in the strategies because the audiences are changing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. I'll go ahead and move on. So I want to take an opportunity to let anyone that's on the call today speak on anything that they're doing or their organizations or agencies are doing for the National Heat Stroke Prevention Day, which is May 1st. Does anybody have anything planned that they would like to share with the group? It could be as simple as something that you're sending out, anything like that. All right. Please remember the upcoming subcommittee meetings. Research and Technology will be meeting on April 30th at 11 a.m. Central. The Communications Subcommittee will be meeting. I see you, Laura. I'll get you in just a second. The Communications Subcommittee will be meeting on June the 4th at 1 p.m. Central, and the Legislative and Policy Subcommittee will be meeting on June 12th at 1 p.m. Central. And I do encourage you, if you are interested in any one of those or all, please let me know and I will connect you with the appropriate meeting, and we would love to have you. As I said at the beginning of the presentation today, that this meeting will be posted at cpsboard.org under the heat stroke tab at the top of the screen, and then you'll go down to the stakeholder work group link, and you'll see all of the videos from the meetings posted there for your enjoyment. So by all means, please check those out. Laura, would you like to say something?
Hi, thanks so much. I just
welcome.
wanted to share that NHTSA's brand new heat stroke campaign will be available for download at trafficsafetymarketing.gov starting tomorrow, April 25th. Or, oh gosh, sorry, on the 25th, which is not tomorrow, excuse me. And those materials will be ready to share for the public on May 1st. So brand new campaign that we did with the Ad Council. Very excited to share it. We hope that everyone likes it and gets some good use out of it. So thank you so much, everyone, for all the work that you do to prevent pediatric vehicular heat stroke. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and I'm so glad you're on the call so that you could say that. They presented that to us at Lifesavers this past month, or this past few weeks ago, whatever. And it is a great way that they're presenting it this time. Is it okay if I say what it is, Laura?
Yeah, of course.
It's basically based on the fact that you say as a caregiver that no, I'll never do this, and how that ends up being that you do. So that's just a little teaser of what you'll see whenever it does get released. And it's really kind of meets what Valerie was talking about, reach people where they are, make it something, put a mirror up so people see see themselves in the marketing. So I'm super excited about that. So thank you, Laura, for that. The next full work group meeting will be July 16th at 1 p.m. Central. You should have received your invitation today, so I'm happy to send that back out if anybody needs it again, and we will definitely work on that. Kendra, go ahead.
I just want to share tomorrow the Child Passenger Safety Board has the CPS Coordinators Forum at 2 o'clock Eastern. And we're going to be discussing pediatric vehicular heat stroke. So if you would like to receive an invitation to that, please just put your email in the chat and I will send that this afternoon.
Thank you, Kendra. Very, very interesting information. And also, Laura did put in the chat function a link to see what she was talking about. So you're more than welcome to check it out there. And we really appreciate that, Laura. All right. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to share before we let you have the rest of your day? Right. Thank you so
Claudia.
much. Oh, go ahead,
I'm sorry,
Tammy.
Claire. I just wanted to clarify. Okay, I think that Laura just put it in the chat. I don't think the new material isn't up yet, but it'll be up on April 20th or 25th on traffic safety marketing.
Yeah, I think she just gave the link so that you could get there in advance. All right. Thank you, Lori. Lori Colley also put her email address in, and I will, you said, is that so that you get the invitation? Okay, I'll send that to you right after the meeting. All right, thank you everyone for your time. And again, if you need to reach out, just let me know. My email address is on the screen, and I'm happy to help. Y'all have a great afternoon, and we'll see you in a few months. Bye-bye. Thank you, Valerie.